Hi guys, it's Kelly Letivola here and I am back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are making 3 different versions of the same type of card. We're going to be using lots of flowers, the cosmos, the spring peonies, the buttercups, and then just some encouragement sentiments. I actually got the idea from a card that I saw that was by Kathy Zilski, and it had like a neutral background and just like a pop of one color floral. I will try to see if I can hunt that down so that I can link you to it, but I thought that it would be just kind of a fun way to do just like a little pop of color, something different. I know that I do a lot of coloring, love coloring. That's how I usually enjoy crafting, but I know not everybody who watches my channel is necessarily a colorist. So this is a little bit of color, which is watercolor in this case, but another kind of way to build up in a design without really too much coloring at all. So what I'm doing here is I have 3 different neutrals. It's a light gray, a dark gray, and a navy. You could certainly use black or brown or hot pink, whatever colors you got going on. And I treated my paper with my anti-static tool, and then I stamped it in Versamark ink. Heat set that in white, and then before I change out my stamp, this is Canson Aquarelle watercolor paper. That's my preferred watercolor paper. But I am going to stamp the main image flower for each one of these cards on this one piece of watercolor paper, and then also heat emboss that in white. This is what I'm going to be watercoloring later to make my focal point. Yeah, so it's just right now it's a super struggle for me to craft. That's just being honest. With everything that is kind of going on in the world, I'm feeling less and less creative. So it's a little bit hard for me to get into the craft room and make something, which is weird because normally that's my like escape, from the stresses of my everyday life. But it's also where I do a lot of thinking, and with everything that's kind of going on in the world, I cannot turn my brain off, just all the thinking all the time. And I think because when I'm card making, I'm just constantly thinking about things. It actually turns out to be a little bit more stressful. So here I have the other 2 flowers. You kind of saw me lay them out and mess around with their positioning. I knew that I wanted there to be the, I guess like it was implied that there was a bouquet or a lot of flowers, but I didn't want them all to be colored. So I am still creating a focal point. I'm just creating it with white heat embossing. Little something to note here that I did mask that, and that mask, while it has very little stick on it, it is some stick. And so you'll see here when I put on the white embossing powder that some of it does stick to the flower that's already embossed. I'm just going to go in with a number 2 round brush and clean that up. I'm not really sure how you avoid that, because I think any masking type paper, Post-it, whatever you use, is going to leave a little bit of stick behind. So just be prepared to kind of clean those areas up before you heat emboss. Or honestly, don't, because we're going to cover it up with color anyway. So does it matter? Meh, I'm not entirely sure it does. With the second one, I realized that I could start embossing my sentiments at the same time, that I didn't have to do them separately like I did with the first one. So here I've laid out 2 of the flowers that don't overlap, and the sentiment, I'm going to do the same thing, anti-static, stamp in Versamark, heat emboss in white. I'm not going to show you every single card because all of the steps that I took for them were exactly the same. So yeah, just basically on repeat here until we get to the coloring. But yeah, so crafting has become a little bit of a struggle for me. So our house has turned into HGTV. I I've never refinished furniture in my life. I've never reupholstered something. I've never ever done any of those things. And now all of a sudden, here I am, basically neck deep in completely redoing my mother's dining room set. Um, we got the dining room set when they moved Graham into the dining room at my parents' house. Um, so we already had it in our house. My game plan was to reupholster the seats. So it already had like my mom when my mom bought them, they were like a brown from the 80s. And then my sister and my grandmother, I think I told you this last time, reupholstered them so that they would be maroon. My dining room is like a sage green, so I did not want the maroon. So my game plan was to like pull off the old coverings, clean the pads, which are still in very good shape, and then reupholster them. But then once I had everything off and all the chairs off, I was like, we're gonna redo these anyway. Maybe I should just redo it now. It's not like we don't have the time. Side note, back to the card. So here, they're all three of these flowers are embossed, and I'm going to do each one the same way. I'm going to fill in the petal with clean water, and then I'm going to add color where I want it to be the darkest. And then for all of them, you don't have to do this. You can certainly do it with one color. I just like the look of multiple colors. So with all of them, I pretty much added one color, the darkest color, to the base of the petal, and then my lightest color to the tip of the petal, and then I just kind of let them do their own thing. Now, that's partially a lie, because whenever I have not watercolored in a while, and then I get back into it, I find that the first couple of petals or objects that I do, it's hard for me not to just get in there and mess around with it. Don't do that. Don't do it, because you're almost always disappointed with the way that it looks. It's more of a one note, kind of one shade of color, which is not how I like my watercolor. But because I just cannot leave them alone, I cannot keep my paintbrush out of the petal. That I end up with those, and I like them much better when I just leave them alone and let the water do the work. So do that. Do that. Eventually, I will remember that I'm doing all of the things that will come up with results that I don't like, and then I will stop doing that. But you'll see on this flower when it's dry that those first couple of petals really are more of just like a one note kind of coral color, even though I tried to go back in and fix it. So the buttercup I did yellow. The peony is quinacridone rose, and I think it's Arulian. It might be Indian yellow. The buttercup is quinacridone gold, and again, Arulian or Indian yellow. And then the Cosmo, don't mind Peanut's little hand there. He was standing there with me. We are going to speed things up now. Otherwise, we'll be here for eons. The Cosmo is quinacridone rose and quinacridone purple. So those are the colors that I used in case you are trying to figure out at home what you would like to use. Or maybe you don't have Daniel Smith watercolors and you would like to purchase them. Also that. But so anyway, the dining room is, I've never done it before. We redid the banister. So the first night, Eric stripped and I think he just stripped it. He didn't sand it. Stripped and cleaned the top part of the banister. And then the following night, all three of us did the same thing. Scraped, stripped it all off. And it wasn't bad. It really was, I actually kind of enjoyed it, and like the sanding process and all of that. So then I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll just redo the chairs because I already have all the chairs off of it. So the banister was honestly extremely misleading as to how difficult doing the dining room chairs are going to be. I was misled into thinking that it would not be crazy hard work, but in fact it is. So there's my warning to you. I would still encourage you to do the projects, because now that we're all, social distancing, when are we ever going to have a better time to do it? You're at home already. Do it. I mean, we're still, cooking dinners and doing laundry and house cleaning and all of that stuff, but this is just something we're doing kind of in between all of those things. So for the chairs, I started with the captain's chair because it's the only one that has arms. So I figured I might as well get the most difficult one out of the way. So I stripped it. The little scraper thing did not seem to be making much headway. So I switched to a wire brush. The second time I stripped it, that seemed to go better. And then sanded it by hand. The second chair, because I was stripping two at a time, because like you paint on the stripper and then you leave it for 15-20 minutes, and then you get to scraping. So I was doing two at a time, so that way, my 15 minutes, one was kind of setting up while I was doing the other one. And so that one the second chair I didn't even strip a second time because Eric started sanding it already. So we sanded both of those by hand. Holy dude, I'm going to be so hulked out by the time that this social distancing thing is over. My triceps are going to be huge, honestly, because I don't use any upper body muscles at all, really, in my whole daily life. I mean, maybe to carry Peanut upstairs to go to bed, because he'll still let me do that. But other than that, not really using those upper body muscles for all of anything until lately, when I'm sanding the daylights out of these chairs. So yesterday we did 2 more chairs. And so this time we did have a palm sander, but I just really honestly am afraid of power tools. And Eric said this one can't hurt me, but I don't care. I'm still apprehensive about using them. So now everything is dry. I am going to fussy cut these out. These all have dies that match them, but I wanted them to kind of line up perfectly with the flowers that are on the card bases. So I decided to trim them out by hand. So just fussy cut them. And then I'm going to pop them up on foam over where they, or basically like their matching counterpart on the card. But yeah, so yesterday he got out the palm sander, at least to do the flat edges, and that really did work like a ton better. After we had done the stripping of 2 more chairs. So at this point, I have to finish sanding 1 chair. It's really like the detailed knobby bits that are the most difficult, and those are on the bottom of the chair. So doing our best to do those things. And then we have 1 chair left and the table. We are going with, as far as like stain is concerned, which just goes to show you, like, my kid totally does not enjoy a challenge. And I get it, because it is super hard work. But also, like, life is a challenge, and if you don't get on board, it is going to be very, very difficult for you to find the good in things that are hard, that are challenging. And God has a purpose for all of it. He knows everything that you're going to do before you do it, every situation that you're going to be in, and all of those things. And so perseverance is super important. And right now, my little 6-year-old ain't got it. So he does not like the stripping portion of so he'll come in for a little bit and then he'll be like, I need a break. And so, but he told me he would be happy to help me with the staining. Of course he will be. That requires no elbow grease whatsoever. But so I explained to him that you can't just give up because something is difficult. And now I think it's more probably applicable than ever, because we're all in this situation, and you can't give up just because it's difficult. It's not, the situation isn't going to change unless we change what we are doing, in order to flatten that curve. So anyway, we will be pretending we are HGTV. I'll let you know how it comes out. We decided to go with a dark stain. It's General Finishes Java. Heard super good things about it online. And then the fabric that I picked out is a cream and a sage green, like small diamond pattern. So that's what's going to be going on the seats. I have been sharing the majority of this over on Instagram. If you follow me there, you've probably seen it. And for sure, I will be sharing the finished product over there as well. For those of you who don't have Instagram, if you'd like to see it, I could probably pop it over on the blog too. So now that all of these are done, they've all been attached with foam adhesive. I am just putting on some clear sequins from Honeybee, and then to make sure that they're not going to go anywhere, I couldn't find my glossy accents, so I actually opted for the, I think it's the Distress Multimedia Matte. Let me look. Distress Collage Medium, that's what it is, in matte, and I just filled the sequins with that. So it does go in white, and that's what you see here, but in the photos you'll see that it does dry clear, and it's not shiny. So that's it. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.